The average American family has lost the equivalent of more than a month's salary in annual income since Biden took office as a result of high inflation, rising interest rates, rising costs. The average American household has lost the equivalent of $7,400 since that time, but it was already in play. So I'm not blaming Biden wholly, okay? There are multiple reasons why this has happened. I won't spend any time on it other than to say the pandemic shut down production. That increased demand, okay, and the supply wasn't there. That was the first issue. The second issue was the PPP loans, where the federal government started sending enormous amounts of money to companies and they were flush with cash. What do people do when they have cash? They spend it. So when companies spend, right, there's more money going in your pocket. We saw government payouts to individuals, extension of unemployment benefits. Everybody had more money. Everybody was spending. Demand was high. Economics 101, high demand, low supply, prices go up. Then we saw wages increase. Hourly wages, salary wages go up big time. Created the Great Resignation. 75 million plus people left their jobs in the last 2 years. Why? To get a higher pay, bigger paycheck. So when the kid at Taco Bell makes $14 or $16 an hour versus $12 an hour, your tacos are more expensive. Folks, this is just how it goes. Well, of the $7,400, about $6,000 was attributable to prices rising at a much faster pace than wages. Well, of course, companies can't keep track with rising prices. I've gotten this call before, and I see this people talking about this on social media. They're like, well, listen, inflation's up 8%, but I only got a 5% raise. It's not an apples to apples thing. Companies cannot give you a raise commensurate or similar to or equal to the raise in inflation. You can't do that. They got a business. Then where are you? You're unemployed. Okay, so this is a real problem. Is inflation slowing a bit? A little bit. But inflation is still happening. So when you hear these reports, inflation is down, it's slowing. Well, no, it's up, but the rate of the increase of inflation has slowed. But we're still dealing with inflationary realities. Why? Of the reasons I gave you moments ago, it's wages. It's wages. And that's what makes all of this kind of confusing to you and why I'm informing you about this. Here's what you hear as an American right now in the news. This is what you hear. Unemployment, historically low, 3.5%. That's a good thing. But then you hear people can't fill jobs. Companies having a hard time finding employees. You go, well, that's not good. I go to my local restaurant and they shut off half the restaurant. Why? Can't find people to wait tables. So you go, well, that's not good. That's hurting small businesses. Then you hear, well, Fed's raising interest rates. 6.5%, almost 7% on a mortgage, whatever you hear that given day. And you go, man, that's really affecting the housing market. But then you hear wages grew at an all-time high. People making more money. And then you hear this. Groceries up. Gas is up. Utilities are up. My life's more expensive. I'm so confused. I'm making more money than I ever made, but it's not going as far as I want it to go. It's a confusing time. So I'm here to inform you that, number one, it's not as bad as you think it is. It's not as bad as the media is telling you. There are some economic fundamentals that make this a weird time. Okay? Inflation is not going to truly slow down and using a fancy word here, it's not going to abate, kind of pull back to a normal growth rate, which the Fed wants to see inflation year in, year out. So every year they'd like to see inflation only happen at about a 2.5%, maybe 2.3% rate. And it's growing at 6% right now. But that's not going to slow down, folks, as long as we have this gap in employment. Now, what's the gap in employment? And why does this matter to you? I'm giving you basic economics because I think it's our part to talk to our friends and family about this stuff and understand what's really driving it. Because we, the people, are the only ones that can solve this. Now, I'm going to go deep on this, Alex, because you all need to know what's driving this. You're not hearing this on a lot of television unless I'm on. I'm talking about it when I go on Fox or Fox Business. Here's what's going on. When the pandemic happened, when COVID happened, and everybody went home for a season. Depending on where you lived, what you did, it determined how long you were out of the workforce, working at home. Here's what happened. There were a lot of people who were in retirement age who had the retirement nest egg to be able to go, you know what? My life has changed dramatically. I was forced to go home and work from home, or I was laid off. And it allowed me to kind of assess my life and the rhythm of life and what I want. You know what they did? They chose early retirement because they could. And so that created a deficit of 4 million workers. Okay? 4 million workers who were previously working in the pandemic, around the time of the pandemic, or in the middle of the pandemic, they said, I'm done. That creates a gap. Then, oddly enough, and what's so wild about the pandemic is it created a lot of new jobs. Just one example is healthcare support. Not nurses, doctors, PAs, but people who would support them administratively or in some tactical way, but it wasn't providing actual doctoral or nurse type care. So they couldn't do that work, but they could do things that would take things off the plate of nurses, workers. You understand what I'm saying? All right, so that blew up. That's an example. Just one. A lot of new jobs. Delivery jobs. Everybody was ordering everything, hey, Uber Eats, Uber. People were like, hey, I could do this job, work for myself. And so what happened was the economy was already creating new jobs and then spun off new jobs to the amount of, oddly enough, 4 million new jobs. So 4 million jobs, 4 million workers left, didn't come back. But then we created 4 million new jobs that people were like, we need people. And then the real crazy societal thing is we have 7 million dudes. 7 million. Of which the majority aren't stay-at-home dads that are doing honorable work. That's amazing. That aren't retired. They're just staying with somebody, living with somebody. They're being supported by somebody because they've gotten their feelings hurt. And the data says they jumped out because they didn't feel they were making the progress in their career they wanted. They're not making the money they wanted. They didn't have the status they wanted. And so they took their ball and they went home. And mamas and daddies are supporting them. Wives are supporting them. Friends are supporting them. And they're sitting there and the number is in the millions. So now there's a gap. So what does this all mean? Companies are having to pay more money to attract people to get them in and work. And so in doing so, some of you are listening and watching me right now, and you've got somebody your age, younger than you, less experienced than you, came in and took the same job that you're doing, and they're making 15% more than you. And it sucks. And you're calling me, you're going, Ken, I feel devalued. You're not. You're just caught up in this weird economic reality where companies are having to pay more money than they would have paid to get somebody in, and you have lost. Hey, why do I tell you this? Because you need to understand the reality so that you can operate in clarity. I'm here to help you get through this.